Hello, and thank you for taking the time to review my audio transcript of the Robotics Platforms report. This was put together in response to a request by Mike and for the superintendents that might be interested in a programmable humanoid type robot. So I wanted to explain in audio a little bit more about what the report is saying. I tried to get this on one page. It ended up being on two. So I'll kind of do my best in this little transcript to kind of flesh out a little more what's on paper. You'll notice I do have the little grid of the three main platforms that were reviewed. I've had two of the three. I've had personal demonstrations of the NAO. I've had a few personal demonstrations of the Darwin OP. I've seen several videos and was kind of interested in its look and its functionality. And the RO was the other one. In the RO, you notice in the grid I have the platform name, I have the price points, the size, the programming interface in terms of its kind of complexity of what kids might be capable of doing. And I used my experience of working with the middle schoolers to kind of judge what I might consider intermediate or advanced. And then the support organization, and then the grade levels. By looking at the programming interface, I kind of came up with what I thought would be a kind of an appropriate grade level for what I was seeing. So far, the NAO looked like it was the most functional. Its size was 1.75, so 1 3/4 feet tall. Its programming interface was relatively simple. It was a visual kind of drag and drop. It wasn't extremely simple, but it would be something that I think that most 8th through 12th graders in kind of a science interest would probably be able to handle. And it's DEPCO, a local company that would be the support organization. The Darwin OP was kind of a cool little humanoid robot that I'd researched, and you can see it down below. It was a little shorter than the NAO, but its programming interface was very syntax heavy and probably not ideal for most kids. In fact, probably anything but the most advanced 11th and 12th graders. And this really the same way with the RO. It's quite a bit more expensive. And this is something I've seen with Dave Holloman through Sapience. I'd also talked with Eric Simmons with Pitsco and Travis Coons, that formerly of DEPCO. But the RO also had this advanced syntax and would have been hard to program, and probably the most advanced 11th and 12th graders could program it, but I wouldn't see too soon before that anyone being able to program it in terms of middle schoolers. So that's our first page. Our second page, I kind of went on to define maybe some of the services that might be offered around this, kind of some suggestions that Greenbush would handle the hardware and software contracts between the support organizations, kind of some of the things we would do in terms of delivering, demoing the robot, providing 2 to 3 hours of advanced robotics programming lab, some training for the students so that they could then program, and that we would also pre-program units for special events. And then some use cases, I think kind of some of the obvious ones that maybe the superintendent that Mike spoke to had mentioned, where they would after a training, a 2 or 3 hour training, they would have the robot for school assemblies and science fairs and back to school events and individual classroom labs, so things of that nature. Some of the things I also put in the report here at the second page, you'll notice, just because of the nature of the programming platforms and the kind of the robot itself, seemed like there were a lot of prerequisite type things that might be necessary. I don't see too many kids being able to, take the 2-hour training and really do a whole lot with the robot, but I would see that if we had other labs prior to them working with the robot, that might be beneficial and let them kind of really get the most out of their experience. And so that's kind of what I'm describing here. Mainly a understanding of hardware inputs and outputs, which oddly enough is something that isn't something kids are real familiar with, just from my experience with the middle schoolers. Just them simply being able to describe what an input or an output might be is not a real second nature thing to them. So I'd suggested some beginner programming labs, and also some beginning hardware programming labs, just so they would become familiar with the inputs and outputs, because with the programming interface phases of the humanoid robot, particularly the now being drag and drop, there's still a lot of input and output type variables that they would need to kind of be comfortable and familiar with. I also have some intermediate robotics programming platforms beyond the Scratch and the Hummingbird, kind of the beginning stuff that I mentioned above in the prerequisite labs. And so I have this other little matrix below that talks about some of the intermediate programming platforms, the Lego Mindstorm, the Vex, and the Gears, things that several of us have already seen through PITSCO and DEPCO. I know Kelly and Tracy and Lisa and myself have all seen demos of all three of these, the Mindstorm, the Vex, and the Gears. So I did a little bit of kind of price comparisons, programming interface comparisons, the support organization, kind of grade levels with regard to those. So that's kind of my audio transcript of the report. Certainly, if you have any questions or comments, let me know, and I can go into more detail. I didn't want the report to be bogged down with a lot of pages or a lot of text, so I tried to make it simple and then include this audio transcript. But let me know kind of what you think next steps would be, and I would be happy to get Dave or have Travis or the DEPCO people kind of come and talk about the NAO also. Now, the NAO isn't something that PITSCO can do, and Travis is now with PITSCO, but it's something he is very familiar with. So that is this audio transcript report. Thanks.